Hey, it's so good to see you. Thanks for coming in. I got a story for you. So, back in high school, my father made me a promise, and it was a promise that his father had made to him. The promise was if you graduate high school, I'm gonna buy you your first car. Now, this was really cool because it alleviates some stress about buying myself a car, and knowing me, I would have dragged my butt on that for a while. I gotta admit, I wasn't afraid of driving, but I had that millennial mentality where I didn't really care to learn, so I needed a little push. Now, my father knew based on my grades, and this was my senior year, that I was going to graduate. There was just no way I wasn't going to. I wasn't doing so hot in math, but that wasn't going to be very hard to fix. So, he bought it for me early. He bought me a 1986 B2000 Mazda pickup truck, and it was a stick shift, which was crazy because I never knew how to drive in the first place, and so I was going to start off driving one of the more difficult vehicles to figure out. Took me a little bit to figure out, but I was a really good driver, and after about a week of learning how to drive, I started taking my brother and myself to school. So it's 9:15. I get up, I brush my teeth, I eat some breakfast, I throw some clothes on for school, and I go into my brother's room because generally he's up at this time getting ready for school as well, and he wasn't. So I go into his room and I'm like, "Hey Dev, we got to get going for school," and he goes, "I'm feeling really sick. I'm not going to be able to go to school that day." I was a little annoyed, but it actually turns out it was a really good thing that he didn't come with me. Lucky prick, he gets to stay home. But either way, I'm driving down the road and I'm heading for school. I'm just sitting there listening to my music in my very cold pickup truck early in the morning. I get to this point where there's a stoplight up ahead and I'm turning left to head towards my school. Now this is a four-way stop, so there are people on the other side, there are people on these other corners, and then there's me here. So I have to wait for this traffic to go since they have right of way, and then I can pull off and head towards the school. So I'm sitting there for a little bit. I look down, shift into first gear, and look back up. And when I look back up, there is a big white F-150 carrying a travel trailer right behind it, barreling towards me. So this is the scene, right? I look down, I shift into first, look back up, here's this truck coming at me, and I literally said out loud, "Oh, great." So this truck hits me at about 35 miles an hour, and I speculate it was 35 because of how hard it hit me. It wasn't soft, it wasn't a kind little touch. Either way, the smoke settles, and I get out of the truck, and I make sure that the guy is okay. And he's totally fine, and he says, "I want to make sure she's okay." Now, I didn't know that he'd hit someone else, and I start looking around, and I realize there's a silver car right behind me now. And she's facing the opposite way of traffic. So apparently what had happened was on this four-way stop, this guy is coming down the road at about 45, 50 miles an hour, and he's carrying this big truck and a travel trailer. There's a girl in a silver car to the right of me who decides to pull out real fast because she thinks she can make it. Well, when she pulled out, the guy with the big trailer, he couldn't stop, and he hit her head on, which turned her towards me, and she flew past me. Now, I look up, and I see this truck is still, after hitting her, coming towards me, and that's what I saw. So we run over to her to make sure she's okay, and then all of us get off the road, and we're calling insurance, and we're calling the police to make sure that, they're going to get to the scene and make sure everything's okay. After we got off the road and realized everyone was okay, it turned out that my truck was the only vehicle in this accident that wasn't totaled from it. The other two vehicles were garbage at that point. The cops show up and they're doing their investigation, and this girl and I were sitting there talking with each other, and she is crying. This girl was hysterical. I kept hugging her and I told her, "Look, it could have been way worse. Everything is okay. Nobody got hurt. Everyone is fine, and the cops are here surveying the area." She told me that it was her fourth car accident that she'd ever been in, and this was terrifying to her, and that she had caused the other ones too, and it made her feel like she didn't deserve to drive. She kept telling me that she was really appreciative of my demeanor through the experience because I was just sitting there like, "Look, hey, everything is okay. We're fine. Stop worrying so much. Everything is going to be all right." And she said it really helped calm her down through it. So finally, the cops walk up to me and they told me that your truck looks fine. If you can drive it, go ahead and continue on where you were going and trade information with these guys and then head on out. So I trade the information and I head towards school. And I told some people that I had been involved in a car accident. So when I pulled into the school, one of my best friends from kindergarten sprints towards me and gives me a hug and is like, "Are you okay? Oh my God." She takes me to my first class and I sit down, and the teacher actually moved a chair so that I could sit near her. So I'm sitting there in front of the class and I'm not even sure what I'm doing at this point because I feel fine. And the teacher looks over at me after about 20 minutes and she says, "Hey, you don't need to be here today. You were in a car accident. There's no reason you need to be here. If you need to go home, go home." And I'm sitting there like, I think I need to go home. Yeah, I'm a little traumatized from this. I should go. So I get home, and once I get there, my brother's all confused, like, "What in the world are you doing back?" And I was like, "Well, here's what happened." Now, you'd think the story ends there, but it doesn't. A few years later, after I graduate high school, I got involved in this theater called Camelot, which is a local theater around the Rogue Valley. I did on-stage plays and stuff for a little bit, but either way, this one day, I get off stage, and we go out into the main room to greet everybody who came to the show, thank them for coming, and then usher them out of the building. Well, this girl walks up to me and she says, "I loved your performance. You guys did a great job. I really enjoyed that play." And I recognized her. So eventually I look at her and I said, "Hang on a minute. Did you hit me with your car?" She goes, "Oh my God, I thought you looked familiar. I didn't expect, what a small world." We sit there talking for a little bit, and it turns out the world is a lot smaller than we thought it was. The coincidences were kind of insane. So during this car accident, I was actually in a play called Seussical the Musical at my high school. She was involved in a play at Camelot Theater, the same exact play, Seussical the Musical. I thought that was a really funny coincidence. At the same time that we're both in this play, she hits me with her car, and a couple years later, we meet up at the theater. Every so often, she would come back to the theater to hang out with some friends there, and I would walk up and I'd hang out with her for a little bit. And it was so funny because every single time that I would see her, after I'd begun to leave, I would always turn back around and shout, "Hey, by the way, it was nice running into you." She'd be like, "Oh my God."